All right, next up, religion. Next thing that's going on in Europe is some religious stuff going on. All right, so we have the advent of Protestantism. That obviously takes hold with our good friend Martin Luther here. Kind of after the printing press, this like sect of Christianity, Protestantism, comes to the fore in Europe, and we'll see why this matters. This is all based on a Becker-Wasserman paper from 2009. Once again, if you're interested, you can always go check the sources for this lecture. I am merely a conduit for the fabulous economic history research that has been done before. Okay, so Martin Luther starts this sect of Christianity, Protestantism. Why would it matter? What's the big deal? How is it so different than what came before? Okay, so here are, in the blue, are your Protestant regions of Europe. This little olive color is your Catholic regions. Red is your Orthodox. Okay, let's lay that over with the night lights. Once again, the night lights are going to be a proxy for growth. More lit up you are, the more luminous it is, the more developed that region is. Okay, so once again, let's go back and look at the Protestant areas, blue, and the parts that are lit up. Whoa, does it look like there might be a correlation? Yes, indeed. Here is some Photoshop. Whoa, what a great Photoshop, Professor Hill. All right. And so it does seem to be that there might be this correlation between the Protestant religion and growth. I mean, you can even think about it. Like your famously rich countries in Europe, your Englands, your Germanys are Protestant. In your Northern Europe, they're Protestant, whereas your lagging behind countries, your Portugals, your Spains, your Italy, particularly Southern Italy, are Catholic. Okay. And Orthodox, sorry, you're right out of it, Orthodox. Okay. And so, and people tend to notice this. People start to notice, like, what's going on here? The Protestants tend to be richer. Share Protestants in 1900, GDP per capita in 1900. You can kind of see this relationship. Of course, these are all your Northern European countries that become fabulously wealthy later on. So if we were to push this forward, they'd be up here. But in general, it's like, look at all these places that are doing well. Your Germany's, Canada, USA's, Australian. These are mostly Protestant places. These are like kind of England offshoots that are doing well. And so Max Weber is kind of like the first guy, this famous thinker. He's like, you know what it is? It's this Protestant work ethic. It's like these Protestants, they really work hard relative to the lazy Catholics. And so he says, this is the difference. This is why the Protestants are doing so well. Okay. Becker and Wasserman come along and say, you know what? We don't think that's what's going on. We think what might be going on is that the Protestants have this idea that everybody should be able to read the Bible. So Martin Luther, he's like, you know what? Like, everyone should be able to read it in their own language. And so he kind of has this push, the followers of him and, the different Protestant sects, they have this push of, hey, we should translate the Bible into whatever the common language is, and people should be able to read it. So they should be literate. Before that, everything was in Latin, and it was like the Catholic priests would basically tell you, look, I know Latin, I can read the Bible, I'll tell you what it says, I'll interpret it for you. You don't need to worry about it, all right? You don't need to know how to read. You don't need to read that Bible. I got it, okay? That's actually one step, that's kind of one step better than how it was in the Muslim world, where it was like an oral tradition, and only the local clergy could they passed it on orally to one another. And once again, they also had kind of the religious power to interpret it and kind of tell the lay people what was going on. Martin Luther, with Protestant, kind of changes all that and says, you can read it. You can have a direct connection to this sacred text and a direct connection to God. And so in that ideology is like, let's push for literacy. And so the Protestants oftentimes would set up schools that would, that would educate and instill literacy in their followers. And by the way, Judaism is like way ahead on this. Judaism essentially has a similar idea of promoting literacy and reading of the Torah, way back in like the 400s and the 600s, okay, which is generally, there's another paper, the author is escaping me, Bocchini, kind of looking at human capital in within Judaism, showing that there's high levels of human capital really, really early on, which can kind of explain some of the movement of Jews into high human capital, white collar occupations, really early on. We're talking 1300s and before. They're moving into jobs like accountants, those sorts of things, because of the human capital within the religion. It encourages, reading and knowledge of the Torah, which then can be applied to accounting, those similar skills. Okay, something that starts to happen with the Protestant religion, where all of a sudden they're encouraging, hey, everyone should read. Everybody get hip with this reading thing and, read the Bible yourself. And so this Becker and Wasserman paper, they are trying to untangle this. They're trying to say, so you got Max Weber over here saying, look, it's the religion, okay? It's you believe in this God. It instills you with this like sense of no vices, and we're just going to work hard and we're going to save our money, and it's the Protestant work ethic. Yes. Becker and Wasserman over here saying, no, it's just that Protestants know how to read at higher levels than Catholics in this time period. Okay, and so what Becker and Wasserman then do is they look at Prussia, present-day Germany, and they say, let's exploit the variation between these different, you can think about these like counties. So, we got some really, really Protestant counties over here, and we have some unprotestant or less Protestant counties over here. And so this is like a nice historical experiment. As you think about this is like the lab of history, where we have some places with lots of Protestants and places that don't. And let's see if there is a difference. This X here is Wittenberg, where Martin Luther kind of founded the movement. Okay. All right, and the time period here, we're looking at the late 19th century, late 1800s. And so basically the idea is we have an area that has similar institutions, similar government, similar geography, and all we're going to do is there's just going to be a mix. We got some areas with more Protestants and areas with less Protestants, okay? And so it turns out in these Prussian counties, there is this correlation between Protestantism and wealth. Okay, so we have couple different measures of wealth. So again, we're dealing with history, so we don't have like perfect data, but we have income tax data. So more income taxes, wealthier. Manufacturing share, more manufacturing, wealthier. And then also we can see Germany today that the Protestants tend to be wealthier. Okay, so as I mentioned, Weber, he says the only way of living acceptably to God was solely through the fulfillment of obligation imposed upon the individual by his position in the world. That was his calling. Essentially, this is you prove that you're faithful and worthy by working hard. Okay, and also, it's okay to accumulate wealth. It's okay to be industrious. All right, but the authors, as I mentioned, they're saying it's all about human capital. Luther translates the Bible into German, and he says, look, everybody should be able to read it, and he puts pressure on his constituents and followers to provide that level of literacy. Not him himself, but by this time period, obviously he's dead, but this is inherent in the religion. Okay. And so indeed, we do see this relationship we go back to 1900, we do see this relationship that Protestant countries are much more literate, or tend to be on average more literate than places that are less Protestant. Okay. All right, this is the raw correlations, and we can see that. Okay, hold on a second. We got to do some econometrics. Okay, so for those of you that have taken econometrics, great, fantastic. You should know what's going on here. For those that haven't, buckle up. But don't worry, I'm going to do my best to explain this in the simplest terms possible. This right here, shared literate, that's what we call the dependent variable. These ones right here are called the explanatory variables. Essentially what this is a regression. Okay, I know that's a scary word, don't be scared. It literally takes 2 seconds to run a regression on your computer, not a big deal. Just a line of best fit through the data, all right? And so what's going on here is basically we want to look at the relationship between Protestants and shared literate, so the percent that are literate. And these are all a bunch of variables that we also include. You can think about it, it's like controlling for them. It's like saying, okay, we're going to hold these things constant. Holding all these things constant, we can look at the relationship between Protestants and percent literate. Okay, and we can look at this thing right here. This is the raw correlation between the two. Then this is once we add all the controls. Okay, these columns, we're going to add the controls. For this class, all you need to look at is what is the sign of this number. All of these are positive. Okay, so that tells us we have a positive relationship between this guy and this guy once we account for all these other variables. Holding these variables constant, we still have a positive, essentially holding their influence on this, whatever their influence may be. Holding that constant, we still get this relationship between Protestants and literacy. That's what the positive number tells us. These stars right here, 3 stars, again, for this class, I'm going to make things simple, all right? Don't, this is not serious econometrics. These stars mean this relationship is statistically significant, okay? It means that it is different from 0 in a statistical sense, okay? So, okay, this relationship is statistically significant. That's what the stars mean, okay? So we had a positive, statistically significant relationship between Protestants and literacy, okay? Which is kind of what we saw here at the country level. This is done within, at this level, at like the Prussian county level. So within these counties, the counties that have more Protestants are more literate. Okay. All right. Where were we? Okay. All right. Another thing we want to think about, we want to make sure there's kind of no omitted variables here. Or maybe we don't want the Protestants to be picking up, something else that we can't control for. We can control for lots of things, in this sort of analysis, and the analysis is done in the paper. But there may be some omitted variables. In this case, we're going to think of it as exogenous. Like what we don't want is this, is that you learn how to read or something like that, and then you say, okay, now I'm going to be a Protestant, all right? In this time period, it's where you're born. If you're born to a Protestant family, you're a Protestant. And the initial conversion to Protestant way back hundreds of years ago was actually among the poor. So it's not going to be the case that, okay, only rich people became Protestants. That's why we're picking up this relationship between Protestants and growth. And then also there's going to be a relationship between wealth and literacy. So we can view this as kind of being randomly assigned, whether you are Protestant or not. This is always something to think about when you're doing an analysis. Is there some omitted variable I'm not accounting for? Becker and Wasserman are going to say, no, there's not. So, of course, they're going to say that, trying to publish a paper, but yeah, we can buy it. All right, this is the story. Whoa, you're going to say, what's going on here, Professor? I got to see a bunch of numbers. It's blurry for some reason. Why don't you get a better copy? I'm sorry. Let me go through this and explain this. This is the smoking gun of the paper, okay? All right, so here's our dependent variable. Remember, we are looking for the relationship between this variable and this variable, which is initially what we are going to care about, the Protestants, the number of Protestants. Lo and behold, that's a positive number. Each of these are just different ways of capturing wealth. Our preferred way of doing it is per capita income tax. This is going to be a proxy for wealth or development. We're going to look at, they also have data on teachers' income, and they also have data on how much manufacturing there are. So these are just different ways of capturing how wealthy an area is, okay, at the county level. Lo and behold, the more Protestants you have, the richer you are. Okay, so it looks like there's this relationship between being Protestant and how rich you are. These are all just different regressions, okay? This is one regression, two regression, three regression. Okay, so we're looking at the relationship between Protestants per capita income, Protestants and teacher income, Protestants and manufacturing, accounting for these other variables that may matter. Okay, so again, how do we read this? Okay, these are all positive numbers. The stars tell us that it's statistically significant. More stars means more statistically significant. Just if there's a star, it's statistically significant for this class. Okay, so we look at this. Okay, it's positive and it's statistically significant. Wow. All right, great. But remember, our author's hypothesis is all of this effect of Protestants on growth is coming through literacy. So they have data on how literate the population is. So they say, let's add literacy as a control. And so in these columns, what they're doing is they're trying to look at the effect of being Protestant after we account for literacy. So this is the effect of being Protestant independent of literacy. Lo and behold, we see a negative number, positive number, but no stars. So it's not statistically different from zero, and negative number, no stars. So basically what this is saying is once we account for literacy, there doesn't seem to be a relationship. What that means is all of this effect, all of the share Protestants' effect on growth is coming through the literacy channel. Lo and behold, we go look at the effect of literacy on growth. It's positive. Each of these is positive, and the stars tell us it's significant. So what these regressions are showing is essentially like there's a relationship between Protestants and growth, how rich a county is, how many Protestants you have and how rich your county is. Once we account for literacy, though, there's no relationship. So therefore, all of the effect on Protestants and growth is coming through the literacy channel, that it essentially engenders this level of human capital in your population. Beautiful paper. What a great job, Becker and Wasserman. Okay, and so that's it. Hopefully the econometrics are not above your head. Oh, you can always just drop into office hours, ask me about it. Always down to talk econometrics. Who doesn't love to just chat about econometrics? Okay, and so the lesson here is that this switch to Protestantism has this unintended consequence of making everybody literate. So it's, hey, we switched to Protestantism in the 1400s and 1500s. By the time we get to the 1700s, its effect is that we have a whole literate population. Literacy has spread where it wasn't before. So again, if we're stacking up England's advantages, boom, they're richer because of these high death rates and low birth rates. Also, everyone knows how to read because they adopted the Protestant religion. So everyone's richer because we got a smaller population relative to other places, and these people can read now because of the religion that they adopted. What else? What other advantages do they have? Find out next time on World Economic History.